Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. Before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Andrea Shaw on the podcast, coming to us all the way from Michigan. It's nice to have another fellow Midwesterner on the podcast. She's an IFBB Pro women's bodybuilding competitor, which, I mean, for a podcast that talks a lot about bodybuilding, we've only had about like 6 or 7 actual female bodybuilders on, so it's nice to have another bodybuilder on. But she's here to share her health and fitness journey, and she's a few weeks out from a show, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But most importantly, she's our current guest. Andrea, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Ryan.
Absolutely. Well, I got to ask, first of all, what's the weather like in Michigan today?
It's steamy, very steamy. I'm not going back out until the sun sets.
I mean, it's been somewhat similar here in Minnesota. We've had like 90 degrees like every day for like the last 3 weeks, but then the last 3 days have been a little bit cooler, so it's been nice. But yeah, I mean, I feel bad now about this weather, but like I told you before, I had guests from Georgia and then Arizona on, and for them, our weather is just like that's the best day of their lives. But I mean, I always say I have probably out of all the guests that I have on, about 2% of them I have better weather than them because Minnesota, oh my God, the most bipolar weather of all. But before I get into that, because I mean, that's a whole podcast in and of itself that I'm planning. It's going to be just about 15 hours of me telling winter weather stories that are just going to hopefully cause people in the South to realize how good they have it weather-wise, at least. But before we get into that, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and what really motivated you to, get in shape and how that eventually led to where you're at right now?
I would say that I was kind of set up to kind of segue right into the gym at least. Throughout my grade school years, I was into cheerleading and gymnastics. And after middle school, I was kind of burnt out. I got into some academics in high school and then college. And it's like, okay, carrying a little extra weight. Then it's like, well, there's nothing structured for me anymore. What do I do? So my mom at that time was going to the gym. She took me to the gym, and she would take me regularly, even in high school. But it never really clicked that I could do it on my own until I got a good look in the mirror after wonderful freshman 15, and I said, okay, you know what? I could do better than that. So let's just start. Let's just start from somewhere. She hooked me up with a trainer who was her trainer. And again, I knew my way around the gym, but I didn't have enough structure. I was used to practice, practice, practice. This is what you do. This is how you do it. After school, you be here at this time. So that's kind of how the journey started. And then once I realized that, hey, you know what? Some, I got some potential here that I can work with. It took off from there, and it happened fairly quickly.
She's one of those 1%ers that I love to talk about on this podcast where you're just genetically just so blessed. And, it's great that we have another one of them on. But one thing that I found interesting, because like I told you before, I did a little bit of my background research on you before you came on, is that you started out in figure. And looking at you now, you are not a figure girl. So what was that experience like?
Honestly, I wasn't a figure girl back then either. I always was attracted to figure because of the poise, because of the grace. But I definitely just needed to jump into it. So, kind of going back to like my earlier part of the journey. So the trainer that I was with, she kind of challenged me a little bit, not directly. She told my mom that she didn't think that I had the heart to stick with it. Because, obviously, I tell people, we got New Year's resolutioners. They come, they don't come. You can't judge. We've all been there. So, I mean, of course, at 18 years old, I got a car. I'm not going to be consistent, right? But yeah, when she told my mom that, that really kind of lit a fire in me that, you know what, I'm going to do something that forces me to take some action. And so that's one thing that I could definitely say across the board, whether it's running a marathon or whether it's training for any sort of CrossFit competition, bodybuilding competition, whatever that is that makes you do what you know you can do to be the best. So that's what I did. I said, okay, what would force me to get into great shape? I mean, excellent shape. And I said, all right, I'm going to do a show. And I gave myself 1 month to do it. Yeah, I gave myself 1 month to do it, and I mean, I dieted really hard. I trained every day. I had friends at the gym who helped me, and for that first figure show, I placed third. So it was definitely an eye opener to, okay, we got something we're working with here. But in all honesty, with my quads, I should not have been in figure. Because although I placed, my legs were just absolutely, I mean, the gymnastics and the cheer, there's just a lot of power in the legs. So I'm not ever going to get away from that.
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, you know that you're pretty blessed if you only have to train for a month basically to get ready for a show and you place. So yeah, that's a that's a good indication that hey, I might be really successful in this sport. But one of the things, I mean, I don't care how blessed you are. One of the things that I always say is that if you're to walk into a gym with 100 people, there's 100 different ways as to how those people got into shape. Whether it comes down to their diet, their nutrition, how many reps they do, what exercises they do. So many little things add up to that overall package. Where I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. And I always say, if you were to walk up to someone and say, like, hey, what'd you train for this body part? It looks amazing. What works best for them 99% of the time is not going to work as good for you. What was that experience like for you, sort of figuring out what worked best for your body? Because it does take so many people such a long period just to figure out and just realize, like, hey, if I do this, it's really going to give me the best results.
Yeah, it definitely was a journey. So a lot of people, I mean, obviously now they look at me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you skyrocketed from here to here." And a big part of that journey was an 8 year break from just learning, studying. So I ended up getting with another trainer, and from trainer to trainer, I was able to learn new things. And then my current coach, and I was able to start to research exercises. I got so inspired that I subscribed to certain magazines, and I would just go through the magazines: Oxygen magazine, Muscle and Fitness, Hers, Shape, muscular development, anything I could get my hands on, I was trying. And I didn't care whether it was for women or for men. Obviously, I was trying to maybe go a little more towards the female side just to get some more of the scientific and evidence based things that they would present. But then I started to say, okay, you know what? These people have certain credentials behind themselves. What else can I do to get myself exposed to even more information? So then I began to research colleges. So then I changed my major, as I did twice. And I found a program that specifically addressed exercise and sports science. And then that's kind of where, the rubber met the road. And I was able to take all of this research with the magazines and the websites and couple that with the academic work. And then again, like you said, trial and error. There were certain things that I just had to try. I had to document. So I always kept a fitness log. I wish they still had that around, but I'm sure I could find it on Amazon somewhere. But yeah, I actually had to keep track: reps, sets, exercises, food, and that became the recipe for, okay, this is actually working, or this is not working. I need to find something else.
I mean, I've honestly just thought about renaming this podcast "Trial and Error" because I talk about it so much that really it's worth. Just a heads up for everyone. It's named DD on the spot because I was always a good designated driver in college. So when I was trying to figure out what nicknames for the podcast, that's what came up for me because I was always, I'd be the guy that would drive half an hour just to pick someone up from a party that I wasn't even invited to, and just be like, "Oh, hey, I need a ride." So I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." So that's how that came. But I love to talk about genetics on this podcast because, especially in this day and age of social media, where I mean, everyone's on Instagram. So many times you'll hear people say, "Oh my God, I want her arms, I want his abs, I want their back." They don't realize that you can only be the best version of yourself. And how many times I've just wanted to shake people down and just be like, "No, you cannot look like that because you don't know, first of all, how they got to that. You don't know. Maybe they were like her, where they were just born blessed, where they could achieve that look, where it's like, you just have to focus on yourself." But leading off that, I mean, I always say whenever someone first gets started in the gym, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off, that they don't have to train as much, and they have that one body part that just lags behind it. They just have to train it into oblivion to get it to catch up. I mean, I'll give you my examples first. My back, just because I worked jobs all throughout college of working in warehouses where you're just lifting and loading stuff into trucks, and you either got a really nice back or you quit. Those are basically the two options that were presented to you. But as I told you before, I am 6'3", and while being tall is nice, it does have its drawbacks, being that my legs are just absolutely shot. I mean, even being a pitcher in baseball, where pitchers are supposed to have a very strong lower body, I mean, I could inject pure muscle into my calves or thighs and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I mean, luckily with the coronavirus, the gyms have been closed down here now, so I wouldn't have to go there because I would still have friends to this day if it were still open who would just be telling me, "Hey Ryan, you plan on training legs anytime this year?" And it's like, "You saw me train them yesterday. Come on." But what were those body parts for you when you were getting started?
I definitely saw a huge transformation in my upper body first. I've always had really thick muscular legs, and it took me a while to figure out how to best train them to get them to start coming through. Diet plays a huge role, more than I probably grossly underestimated the fact that diet, really, especially for certain women who do have that lower body mass to kind of tackle, if that's where you're prone to gain the weight, you definitely have to dial in the eating. That there's no substitute for it. But yeah, my legs took some time to really start to dial in because I've always had mass, but again, in our sport, you definitely need more than just mass. We need to be able to see that separation in the muscle and see it clearly. So that became uh, I would say my coach took about a year's time when end of 2017, and then the majority of 2018 to really start to dial in my legs, and it's worked phenomenally.
Well, I'm glad.
But
Well, I was
yeah,
just gonna, I was
legs
just
were
gonna tell the
tough.
guests when she said upper body, I had to have her back up when we were starting this podcast just to get her arms in view because they're just basically taking up the full screen. Basically, I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we had Katie Lee on here, but I think she gives Katie Lee a run for her money. So, I mean,
Oh,
this is just absolutely. I mean,
but I
I
have to say, I hated working when I first started because my workout partner, he's a Marine, and so is my coach. And he approached me, and I was training legs, and he's like, you could be working so much harder. And of course, I'm like, who is he talking to? Like, I'm offended. Are you kidding me? I'm working so hard. And sure enough, I mean, within probably about 30 days of training upper body, and I mean, I hated working shoulders. I didn't really want to work chest, but those have come to be some of my um, features in bodybuilding. I mean, I've always loved training back. That's been a no brainer. But yeah, arms and shoulders and chest, it was kind of like
well, here's the part where
much. But
here's the part where she really embarrasses us. Can you give us a front double bicep and we can just? Oh, I'm not even. I'm just. Oh my god, that's just not even fair, everyone.
I know my coach still says the same thing. He's like, this is just not right.
I mean, it's like I almost don't want to publish this podcast now because I don't want to have people believe that that's possible because I don't know. I mean, jeez, I'm gonna have to go and train arms for about 10 hours a day just to make myself
Come on, fire it
feel
up. Put me on the
feel better.
FaceTime. I'll coach you through.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I was again being a baseball pitcher. You're not going to have big arms, so that was another thing, and my height. So yeah, I mean, and that's why I love asking that question too, because so many people have so many different body parts. I mean, like we've had people that their legs and but I'm surprised because with that gymnastics background, I think that your legs would be the first thing to take off, but it's just for so many people,
Yeah.
it's just
See, there was a lot of power in the legs, right? But from what I studied in college, I mean, power doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get extremely lean. You have to make certain adjustments to if that's going to be the look that you want. So yeah, definitely always had a lot of power in the legs, and the sport of gymnastics and cheer called for that. But bodybuilding is a totally different animal. I mean, it's definitely much more of you have to be exact. I mean, the science is there. But yeah, I mean, that was something that I had to mentally make an adjustment for because my first show of in women's physique in 2016 and my first show in women's physique in 2018, I noticed a difference in my legs, but it wasn't enough to get me the first place win that I wanted. And I said, okay, this is definitely there's more to it, and there's going to be some more diligence that will be have to be applied on my part. So yeah, the legs have definitely been, I mean, yeah, they're there, the mass is there, but we had to dial it in. So my diet gets really strict right into probably about 4 to 5 weeks
I mean,
out.
that's what separates the winners from a lot of other competitors is just that diet. But before we get into the bodybuilding aspect, I mean, I always say one of the biggest myths and misconceptions that I love to bust on this podcast. Granted, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, But there are still so many women that still have that fear that if they walk into the gym and they touch one weight, they're going to put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight. And, I always say to that, first of all, I wish I had that self confidence because I would be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company by now or something like that. But obviously, it's just so not true. But did you ever have that fear when you're getting started, especially with your genetic background, where I mean, you might actually put on 50 pounds of muscle overnight, but
Yeah,
but
I did.
yeah, so that's why I won't use her as an example for people because she's the one outlier. But obviously, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that when people just come up to you and just like, oh, I'm just afraid of working out because I'm afraid that I'm going to get too huge?
Absolutely. So what I try to do, because with my clients, many of them obviously they can look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, you're in great shape." Like, but I don't want to compete. That's okay. That's perfectly fine. There is a certain amount of lifting that I've done over the years, and I've been progressive. So I try to reassure them that, don't worry. I'm not going to have you lift in the way that I lift, but you're going to have to lift and you're going to have to challenge yourself if you're going to see your body change. And yeah, I had that apprehension. That is absolutely one of the reasons why I started in figure. I was not sure that I could, number one, even get to the point where I would be a bodybuilder that could get size on. And then number two, what for me in my mind, what does that look like? So I mean, I thought that I could diet down my legs harder and run and do a ton of cardio, and my legs were still massive. I mean, I was a quadzilla on stage with these girls in figure. I was the only one up there at like 140 pounds, and I was starving. And these girls are up there at 118, 119, 120, and I mean, I was just out of place, totally out of place. So I had to, number one, decide what you want. If the pain of being out of shape, of what you see when you look at that reflection back in the mirror, because that was the biggie for me. I said, you know what? I don't like what I see, and I can change it. And if I can change it, that means I have to be brave enough to do the thing that's uncomfortable. And that mentality has still stayed with me. So, I mean, sometimes knee deep into a prep, I'll tell myself, okay, you know that doing the uncomfortable thing could potentially be the game changer or the thing that sharpens the axe, so to speak. Let's do that. Okay, so you have to make a decision. Are you going to be disappointed or are you going to be satisfied? So I try to tell my ladies we have two options. Do you want to leave our session feeling disappointed or satisfied? You've got homework. I'm here to guide you. I'm here to tell you exactly what to do even when you're not with me. But you have to make the decision that whether these people are looking at you or not, they're probably going to leave satisfied, maybe somewhat satisfied, maybe even dissatisfied. How are you going to leave? And you make the decision because I'm here to support you, but you got to be happy about what you're doing.
Yeah, this is a lifestyle that if you're used to comfort, it's not going to work for you. I mean, you always
Absolutely.
I mean, I couldn't stress that enough. But one thing that I say impacts, especially I think women, so much more positively than men with the working out aspect is just the confidence boost that it gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who have just been able to either make life changing decisions or just help them impact their every single aspect of their life. Because I always say that is the one thing that you can take from the gym and impact every single aspect of your life is that confidence boost. How have you personally taken that confidence boost that working out has given you and used that to impact your life?
Oh, it transcends everything. Everything. School academic work. It became okay. If I could get in the gym and crank out another set or another rep or give it another 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you can do it. You've got it down in there. So it's just that internal dialogue. And then, it transcends into other things like work. Those long days where it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I want to be back home in bed. But it's like, okay, you know what? No, this is just a small segment of time. And then I always try to structure my day to set up the greatest momentum in the morning. So I try to make sure that my workouts are in the morning because then it kind of sets the tone for my entire day. And so I think that when you realize, and that there's a caveat with that, right? There, you have to decide when are you most energetic. For some people, it's not the mornings. Some people need time to wake up, get caffeine, yeah, you gotta. And I
Guilty,
try to tell,
guilty.
yeah, Let's feel you out and see what's going to be the best fit for you. But definitely for me, I'm a front loader. Let's get that morning going, and then once I get that workout in, that whole mindset of okay, I got this accomplished. I took care of my greatest possession, which is my health and my wealth first. Now I can handle everything else throughout the day, and I don't have to worry about trying to give it, 100% later after I've had work, right? Because the day is on me, and sometimes it can be difficult to give it my best.
Well, I mean, you brought it up briefly, and I always say it is the most important thing for recovery. It is the most important thing. It might be the most important thing overall is sleep that most people do not talk about when they're talking about a healthy and fit lifestyle and bodybuilding in particular. I mean, you need your sleep. And I always say there's a huge difference between me even getting 8 hours to 6 hours, where if I get anything less than 6 hours or sometimes even like 5 hours, it's a hard time for me to even get a workout in. I mean, I know it's going to be, I mean, I can remember in college, I pulled a couple of all-nighters, and both times I tried to go to the gym the next day. I got about 20 minutes done on my workout, and I was like, hey, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm sorry. That's the one time, that's the only two times I've ever quit in the middle of a workout because I was like, I literally just can't. But how much sleep do you try to get, especially now that you're in your prep where, I mean, you need that extra special recovery? And are there any tips and tricks that you like to use in order to get that proper amount?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my goal is to get anywhere from 6 to 8, preferably 8. Some days you just have to, because the one thing about prep, depending on where I'm at with the dieting part, sometimes I'll have some energy surges. And so it can be kind of tricky trying to get to sleep. So I did find a magnesium supplement, and I wanted to go with something that was natural, something that my body can utilize. And it's a sleep aid, and it works phenomenally. I picked it up at Walmart, cost me $4. Spring Valley is the name of the company, and I mean it is perfect. Then there's tea. I like to drink tea to try to ease myself into sleep, and those they've worked. So I stick with those and try to get a schedule. So my phone has a wonderful little um, clock, and it reminds me, okay, hey, it's time for you to get ready to go to bed, brush those teeth, and those cues, because sometimes it can get so entrenched in, okay, I gotta get this done, gotta get this done, that you lose track of time. But if you got a goal and you know that, the ultimate goal means that you have to day after day put these little small goals. I need to get my sleep. So, that having those reminders, and you got to figure out what works for you. For me, the phone reminder, excellent. For some other people, maybe it's a bath, maybe it's something that they do to actually prepare them to relax the body and go to sleep. All of those are good tools and tips, but your body's repair mechanism only happens during sleep. Because when you don't get enough sleep, you get cranky, you want to eat.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
I personally have to have my little melatonin here right before I go to bed. But I mean, yeah, I've had times too where just because of the technology of doing this podcast, where I've been, editing a podcast, and all of a sudden I look at the clock and I was like, oh my God, it's 4 a.m. I should probably get to bed now. So yeah, it's definitely, yeah, sleep is just overall just the biggest game changer, I think, when you look at, being successful in this sport. But we haven't touched base on it yet. But I mean, I told you this before, where the general public thinks that bodybuilding basically is just, oh, they just lift weights and they go on stage and they pose. And that's, probably less than 1% of what you guys actually do. They don't understand that that nutrition aspect is anywhere between 80 to 90% of the results that you get. I mean, I still have these friends. I'm about to be 26, and I still have these friends that still have that mindset where, oh, I can work out, as much as I want, but, as long as I eat, and I can eat whatever I want, because if I just work out long enough, it'll be fine. And I'm just like, okay, maybe because you're younger now, that might work for you now, but just wait 5 years down the line, where it's always nice to have that healthy nutrition ahead of time. But what would you say were probably some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you really started to take things seriously in bodybuilding?
Oh my gosh. I blew the first 6 years of my journey trying to eat what I wanted because I worked out. Yeah, that didn't work so well. And I got to a point. So the weight loss and the transformation, some happened, but then I hit a plateau, and I said, okay, I'm working hard in the gym. How much harder can I work? And I really don't want to give up certain foods. And you can knock on that door and you can try to beat it down, but you, the nutrition is the only way. So then I began to slowly make suitable substitutes, that swapping out the bread for um, some other sort of starch, rice, potatoes. Swapping out the cheese. I tried vegan cheese. I tried, oh my gosh, some other kind of different flavors that were not cheese because they got like the powdered flavored, but it's not cheese. Yeah, you just gotta you gotta keep an open mind because the taste and the desire for food, it's entrenched in us. So you can't just avoid it. You have to tackle it. You have to go into it and say, okay, what else can I use? Who else has information that I can use? And you have to be willing to do the research and try different things out. So that's where, there's always a way. And let's not forget, planning a cheat meal, it can still happen. But it's a meal, not a cheat day, because you can totally undo a whole week's worth of work in just one day. Some people can do it in one meal, but that would be pretty tough to take on. But that was the biggest thing, that, telling my mind, okay, I'm not going to starve to death. I'm going to eat again. There's plenty of food to eat. There's plenty of food to eat. It may not be what I want, but based on this goal, I can't eat biscuits. I like biscuits. I can't eat all the cheese. I like cheese. It's not going to happen. So, I mean, again, the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. It's just not going to happen. So you got to be willing to say, all right, I can do this. Let me start doing the work of figuring out what types of things are going to be the best fit to get me that end result.
So one of the things that I struggled with too starting out is that, you know, I'll give an example last night. I went a little overboard with some food last night. I'm not gonna lie. My cheat meal did kind of turn into kind of like a cheat day-ish kind of thing where all of a sudden we're like, oh, we're gonna get Papa John's, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna control myself. I did about like 80 minutes of cardio, which when I be honest, cardio for me on 80 minutes is just walking basically, but I still get like 8 miles in. But it's so then next thing you know, I had like 6 slices of pizza, and my uncle brought over some of his homemade beef jerky, and I had about, a good almost pound of that. And it's so yeah, I'm still dealing with that. But how do you mentally deal with that? Because I mean, you are gonna have slip ups, and so many people make that mistake then of then deciding like, oh, I'm gonna do like 10 hours of cardio then the next day to make up for it, and then they hurt themselves. How have you mentally dealt with that? Just knowing that like you shouldn't be changing up the amount of cardio that you do or the amount of work that you do afterwards, because then you're really gonna screw yourself up. How have you dealt with that mental aspect of this sport?
So I try to take a step back and I say, okay, if I'm not gonna like get rid of everything that I ate in a day. Your body's not designed like that. Just because you go to the bathroom the next day, it doesn't mean your body isn't still processing that food. So I make a decision. All right, for the next 6 days, I am going to be consistent with my preparation and making sure I'm eating the things that I'm supposed to be eating in the right amounts. And as long as I tell, don't get on the scale, focus on getting to the gym and making sure the food is ready. And I tell my ladies that all the time. That's more than enough. Just make sure two things. Keep it simple. Keep it simple, because the simpler it is, the easier it is for you to follow. So you got 6 days. Now you're gonna stay on target. You're gonna stay on task. And by the time we get to the seventh day, we will give you another treat. But this will be a pre-planned event. Okay, we're not gonna just loose it, because those are the times where it can get slippery. You gotta be planned. Okay, and when you have your cheat meal, so when I sit down for the week and I say, okay, for the next 6 days, I'm gonna eat X, Y, and Z. It's gonna be chicken. It's gonna be broccoli. It's gonna be asparagus. I'm gonna have sweet potatoes. I'm gonna have regular potatoes, rice. I'm gonna cook it on this day. Pack it up. What am I gonna have on my for my cheat meal? That also needs to be planned. And then I can say, all right, I am going to have pizza from here because I know this is what I'm going to enjoy, and I will have earned it. So when we condition ourselves from a very early age on the reward system, there is work and then there's a reward. You go to work to get a paycheck. So let's structure those types of things right into this because it works. It definitely has a place and it can be maintained.
So if anyone out there is wondering what differentiates my guests from me, what she just basically said is basically the big differential where I mean I can't walk past a pizza store and not just be like, okay, I need one of those damn slices. I can't. So yeah, it's been one thing that I've been working on, and you know I have been slowly getting better, but the only problem is that I have a birthday in about 4 days, so there's no way I'm gonna do 6 days of clean
Oh,
of clean.
happy
Well, why
birthday!
thank you. So yeah, I and well so because of the coronavirus, so I'm not even gonna go out to bars or anything like that. But me and a bunch of friends are just gonna go to a friend's cabin for the weekend, so we'll have some fun with that. But the number one thing that I was surprised of so much when I started this podcast, and if I hadn't known a little bit about it, like in college, like I said, I knew a few bodybuilders in college, but the hardest thing for so many of these competitors is posing. I would have never guessed that in a million years. And neither would the general public, because I mean, it's just something that you don't think about so much. But I've heard so many stories about how, you know, it's harder than your nutrition, it's harder than your working out. I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a good driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What has your experience with posing been like?
Oh man. Oh, posing is another one of those things that in the earlier part of my career competing, I grossly underestimated. And I would say once I got into my 2016 competition season, I said, okay, you know what? There's got to be a method for making sure that you can dial it in and give yourself enough time to really get the poise and the grace that the judges expect on the stage. So I try to make sure that, and my current posing coach does this with me now. We do it timed, so it's timed because you don't know how often the judges are going to move people. You don't get to determine, you know, how long they're going to make you hold the pose. My last show in Chicago last year, oh, they made us work. And I mean, you know, some girls were sweating and shaking, and and this is where, if I had to give a nice tip to anybody, I would say start practicing your posing early. Pretty much as soon as you start your prep. I mean, if you're a more seasoned competitor, you may be able to kind of squeak in and get some posing. But the closer you get to show day, you got to ramp it up. You need to be timing yourself. You need to be making sure that you can hold that pose. Because I mean, if you sweat while you're practicing, you shouldn't be sweating on stage. Shouldn't be. Again, that's a caveat. I mean, the lights are bright. There's a lot of heat. You're nervous or excited. Those kinds of things. But those are things that are going to happen anyway. So the more you still prepare, the better. But again, you most competitors they think it's easy. I still get this, especially with the figure girls. Oh well, it's just quarter turns. Okay, yeah, until I make you lift your chest up, raise those shoulders up, squeeze your arms, and tuck your stomach in. I mean, it's like, and then they're shaking. And it's funny, I try not to laugh at them, but then they look at me and they're like, oh my God. And I said, yes, yes, not as easy as you thought, because they look at the final product, right? They see the figure competitors like Sydney Gillian and Candace Carter. I love her. She's awesome. They make it look so easy, but they practice so much. That's the whole point. You have to practice early and you have to practice often.
I mean, I couldn't say it better myself. And I say, unless you're like Janine Lankowski, which is one guest that we've heard of all the time, that's like the perfect poser, where like
Oh
she literally
gosh.
doesn't even need to practice. Like we've heard like Maria Flores, I was telling you, we had her on, and she's like, Janine just told her one time that she just went out on stage and just winged it, her posing routine, and she did it like perfectly. So, oh my god, that's just a
She's
whole nother
amazing.
topic in and of
She is
itself.
amazing. I've worked with her. And she I mean, everybody has their strengths. That's definitely hers.
And if
She's a
anyone
posing
look her
ninja.
up, because it's like it's robotic but in a good way, where it's like it's just so precise, and just you're like, oh my, like you didn't think that a human being would be able to pull that off. But out of your bodybuilding poses, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
The front lat spread has grown to be one of my favorites. Between that and the front double bicep, my least favorite, the rear lat spread. Only because, I mean, I would like to see more definition, like out of the pose itself. It's not that my body or anything like that, but it's just I like to see the definition in the muscle a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, it's still a great pose. Don't get me wrong, but if I had to list it on a hierarchy, I mean, yeah, rear lat spread would be like at the bottom of the list.
Oh yeah. Well, we hear something new every day because normally like 99% of it is abs is the least favorite because it's just such an awkward pose and it's just really in there. But yeah, rear lat spread too. I mean, anything dealing with something where I couldn't see what it looks like, that's going to be a problem for me too. So I totally understand that. But I always like to ask this to all the pros that I have on the podcast. What is that feeling like when they announce your name and you realize, oh my God, I'm a pro now? Because for anyone out there who might be a first time listener or isn't really aware, for a lot of these athletes, winning their pro card is the highlight of their career just because that is the affirmation that, all that hard work that you put into the gym has finally paid off. And what was that moment like for you when you realized, oh my God, I'm a pro now?
It was it was justifying. It was definitely justifying of all of the hard work, of all of the diligence. Because the first national show I did, and this is not it's not common for people to go to their first national show and win their pro card. I mean, many competitors that I know who are now pros, I mean, it took them years. So, for those who are fortunate enough, to do it on the first shot, I mean, hey, kudos, excellent accomplishment. That I was not that fortunate. I won mine on my second try, which, yeah, still not common, but it definitely still gives you that validation of, you know what, it was worth it. It was worth it. There were days where you question yourself and you're like, okay, can I really do this? Do I really want it that bad? And that moment where they announce you as a pro, it's like, yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah, and I can't imagine what that feeling must be like, especially with all the hard work that you put into it. But what was your main decision behind changing up into bodybuilding? Because I mean, I always say if you're to even look at physique to bodybuilding, it is so much more of a different, it's just a completely different beast. I can sort of like compare it to if you're playing NCAA, if you're playing college football as opposed to going to the pros, where I mean, you are taking things up to, I mean, there's already such an extreme level for the physique compares, but for bodybuilding, that is just notching it up even further. What was your decision like when you decided that? Because I mean, I bet you would probably just had to realize that, like, oh my God, I mean, I've been taking things up to a notch for such a long period of time, but I'm going to even need to go even harder now.
Yeah. I had some help. And honestly, to be totally transparent, I I look at the figure division just like I view the women's physique division now. I should have started in bodybuilding. I truly should have started in bodybuilding. I was fighting my body to try to be a figure competitor. I also was fighting my body to try to be a women's physique competitor. I truly should have just taken bodybuilding and gotten right into it. But I learned along the way, right? So the journey is not to be despised. But definitely after my pro debut, so this was again part of the tapestry of my story. I only did one pro show as a women's physique pro. I mean, when I got backstage and I'm looking at these girls, I mean, because you can't determine who shows up. I mean, you get that pro card, it's based on who showed up, who had the best package that day. And yeah, I was the monster backstage. I felt like figure all over again. I was like, okay, I am nowhere near as lean or as petite as these girls because they're not small, right? They carry muscle on them, but they are definitely not nearly as massive as the female bodybuilders. And one of the judges and Wings of Strength ladies, Linda Murray, approached me and said, when I came off stage, you look amazing. Let's not take that away from you, but you are totally not in the right division. And I mean, they pretty much reaffirmed what I kind of knew standing backstage next to these pro girls. And I'm like, okay, as hard as I could diet, as hard as I could cardio down, I still will never be that small. I will never be that small. And this is the big thing about competitors. Listen to your body. You may like that division. That's great. Awesome. Support them. But if you don't fit there, then you're not going to do well there. And that can lead into a lot of frustration. It can be into an even deeper spiral of depression. You got to make sure that you're open to changing. You may like it, but that may not be the best fit for you.
Well, and for anyone out there, Linda Murray, that's the goat of female bodybuilding, basically. If you're looking for one, so what's your relationship been like with her? Because I've seen that you've had a ton of photos with her. What's she like in person? Because I've heard nothing but positive things about her.
Oh my gosh. You talk about the epitome of a graceful woman. She is amazing. So she's from Michigan. So a lot of my experience growing up, at the first gym that I started out at, they had a huge mural of her on the wall. And I mean, I was absolutely just starstruck to see like who is this lady? She's amazing. And the more I got into weightlifting, I went to another gym that she used to train at, and they were like, "Oh my God, you look like Linda Murray." Yeah, and they called me Little Linda now. And I did her show back in 2018, and everything from there. I mean, we just after talking to her, it was just it's like it's meant to be. And her and my coach, they have a long history together. They used to work out together. They were coached by another pro locally. So there's just this. There are certain things that happen in life where it's supposed to be, and that's the way I definitely look at her. I mean, she is. I mean, to reach her status, and I mean to tutor her own horn a little bit, to retire from winning Olympias and then come back and win two more. Amazing.
She's literally the
Amazing.
Michael Jordan of female bodybuilding. Yeah, if you look at
Ugh,
it, I mean,
100%.
100. I mean, it
100%.
it's just insane. But I mean, we can't have a podcast during coronavirus and not bring it up a little bit because it has impacted so many people's lives or everyone's life. I should say, if there's anybody that hasn't been impacted by this, I want to know first of all what their life was like before this, so that if they're just like, oh, I'm fine now, everything's cool. But how has this whole pandemic changed the way that you train? How has it changed your prep? Because I can imagine, Michigan gyms were closed for a while. How are you still able to get those workouts in?
Well, thank God I invested in a lot of fitness equipment when I first started my journey. So, because again, those times where I was like wanting to go to the gym, but then I wouldn't go, I still bought stuff and I amassed certain things and equipment that I kept at home. So I tried to make sure that I had an avenue to not give myself any excuses. Okay, so once I got serious about like, okay, I'm ready to make this change, that's when I started, give me a treadmill, let's get a bench, let's get dumbbells, let's get barbells. And I kept them. And so I've been able to utilize what I have. My experience with teaching group exercise also has been amazing. So I put together a Facebook group for the ladies who would come and take my classes, and I work out with them. So to keep them motivated, to keep them inspired, and it's helping me too. It's been a true blessing to be able to see that I have resources available. So that's been a huge benefit during this prep because I don't see where I could have gotten through it without having these resources.
For the show that you're doing, have they sent you like any emails about like how they're gonna, maybe like quarantine or how they're gonna make it safe? Has there been any talk of, like what they're gonna do to make it so that the competitors are safe?
So masks will be provided. They haven't stated whether or not the competitors will be wearing masks, but they will be available for us. We also have a limited capacity for audience. So if I remember correctly, they should be roughly at about 50% of whatever the maximum occupancy is. No more than I think 60. So they've definitely taken some precautions to make sure that we're going to be safe. I believe we may also have temperature checks. So that's I'm hoping that everyone is okay with that. I mean, being competitors, I hope not to see people with haughty mindsets thinking that just because they're healthy and they're strong that they're invincible. Let's be safe. Let's be smart. And let's make sure that we're kind to one another too. Some people really are mentally trying to make adjustments during this time. So
Well, the only thing that I was really worried about is that like people don't realize when you guys are getting ready to go on that stage, you're at your weakest when it comes to just being depleted and just everything that goes into it, where I was like, yeah, if they get sick though, that could be definitely a problem. So I hope that none of that happens. But another myth and stereotype that I love to bust on this podcast is that so many people don't understand that look that you present on stage, that is not a sustainable look. I think there's a lot of things like like shows like Biggest Loser, where people go on, they lose a ton of weight, and some of them are able to keep that weight off. Where people just look at bodybuilders and they just assume the same. We're like, oh, they work out so hard and they train so much, they must be able to just look like that forever. But that is not the case. What was that like for you when you first realized that, like, hey, this look that I present on stage is going to be the best that I'm going to look for a long time? And has that gotten easier for you to accept that as your career has gone on?
it has slowly gotten easier for me to accept. Because you look at the pictures, you remember what you felt like, you remember how amazing you looked. And it's not that we look bad in off season, but there is a significant change in the amount of body fat that you have, and that's just the way it's got to be. So I try to make sure that I continue to condition my mind to those two things that I referenced earlier. Keep your meals planned and get to the gym. So that I try to make sure that I shift my focus right after a contest because I know I'm going to eat, right? All right, let's plan it out and be okay with making sure that this you gotta eat so that you can be better for the next show. So you can't stay that lean and expect to have any significant improvements that may be needed to do even better at the next show. So that's a mindset that I would absolutely encourage anybody. There's no way you can maintain a 3% body fat. It's not meant to be. There are certain body functions that you have to have fat. You do. It's designed that way. Now, what you have to do is make sure that you exercise restraint. There's no substitute for that part. Don't sit down and eat all of it. Plan it. If you feel like you maybe don't have the discipline, enlist some help. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's a trainer. Maybe it's uh, Weight Watchers, whatever it is. That's how you implement and know yourself. If you need the help, put it in place. Don't even question it. Put it in place. And that way you are guaranteed to make sure you keep balance. And my coach and I, we go through that together a lot, because he knows when the closer I get, it's like, do I look okay? Am I okay? Do you think I'm on track? You're fine. Don't worry about it. Just make sure that the food is good. You're eating your meals on time. Yes. Okay. Don't worry about anything else. I know your training is good. Let's just coast on in. So those things become immensely important, making sure that, whether it's you want to lose 20 pounds, cool. Get you somebody that you can be accountable to and that will help you make sure that you keep that anxiety in check. Because we all can let our minds go there, but you have to have people that are trustworthy, and you rely on them to give you that feedback that you need.
No, yeah, and I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. And two of the questions that I love to also ask every health and fitness guest that I have on, there have been so many positive things that have happened to me since, I really started working out and just the whole confidence boost. But one of the negative things is that you're going to get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water, and it's sealed on tight. You're basically just the go-to strength person. And, being whenever I come visit my parents, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carrying groceries for them, being the good son that I am. Does that happen to you a lot where a lot of people just say, like, oh, hey, Andrea, you can definitely do this for us. Can you come help us?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And you have to be okay sometimes with just saying no.
Yep.
You do. I mean, as much as you love them, you just have to look at them and say, you know what, love you, but can't. Hire it done. There you go. I mean, and it can wear you out if you let it. That's where you gotta implement your own boundary. Because yeah, of course I'm strong, and people, some of the fans, oh well, can't you lift this right now? No, I'm in prep. No,
Yeah.
you cannot. So I mean, that's where and be okay with it. Get comfortable with saying, I love you, and I don't mind joking around with you, but definitely not coming to do all
Oh, yeah.
that.
No, I mean, for me, it's a double-edged sword because being 6'3", I mean, I could have zero muscle at all, and they just be like, "Oh yeah, tall guy, come and help us." So
Yeah,
that's
you're
been one
young,
thing.
you're strong.
Yeah, yeah. I've had to deal with that too. Where I mean, and I'm at the age too where all my friends are, starting to move out now and stuff like that. So it's like, oh, I'm moving out. Can you come help me? It's like, well, you're paying for dinner. That's the only reason that I'm doing that.
Absolutely right. Now,
Basically, but yeah. But one thing that I also like to ask, especially female bodybuilders, is because let's be honest, you're not the average looking woman. If you're to walk out in the street dressed the way that you are right now, you become like a mini celebrity. Where I mean, it's just because it's not the normal, and people, the human mind, just when they see something that's not of the normal, they just get fascinated by it. What's that experience like? Because like I said, you become like a mini celebrity, and has that gotten easier for you to accept that you're gonna get stares? And I mean, a lot of it's like compliments and stuff like that, but you're also gonna deal with some of the negatives too. What has that journey been like for you?
it's a touch and go. Some days, you know, I don't mind it so much. Other days, it's just the big red stop sign. Just you gotta know yourself, and you have to kind of make adjustments as you go throughout the day. One thing that I also do is I try to cover up as much as I can.
Well, good luck.
I'm Yeah, I know. Yeah, my coach looks at he's like, "Really?" And I'm like, I can try." So sometimes you can at least thwart off some of it, right? So I mean, you'll if you saw me at work and I work in the fitness industry, that's my full-time job. I have my jacket on. I stay covered. Unless I'm actually exercising, you probably won't see me with my arms out. But I mean, there are times, yes, I'm on vacation. I'm walking. I'm not going to be walking the beach with a jacket on. But I try to keep the conversations brief. I can't control what other people say that could be negative. All I can do is try to make sure that I recognize it immediately, and then I can make a decision to um, cut the conversation fairly short in a respectful way, because sometimes people just don't know where the boundary is. I can remind them where it is. So, and I encourage ladies. I mean, if you do carry extra muscle, be okay with that. And people want to grab and touch, and it's like, wait, let's be respectful. I respect you, and you have to in turn respect me. So I enjoy it when they ask questions. I always pray that I can motivate people. So to that end, I enjoyed it. But yeah, some of the negative stuff, people can say things, it can be hurtful, but I have to make a decision within my own self that this is still what makes me happy. And so it inspires the 80%, and where the 20% don't like it, you just kind of have to shake the dust and move on.
Well, I even remember in college, yeah, drunk girls coming up and feeling my arms without even me asking, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. Let's be honest, this was the college, Ryan, so I pump it up a little bit for him and stuff like that. That's the college. It was a completely different time, but now, yeah, I mean, I just find it so fascinating. But my favorite question that I ask every single bodybuilder that I have on is that, I've had male bodybuilders on and their clothing options are limited enough as it is. But female bodybuilders and clothing options, I mean, that is just a conundrum. I mean, I always say, just looking at your shoulders, you're not going to find many dresses that are going to fit. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time where it's just basically impossible. What have been some ways that you have been able to find clothing options that work for you? Because, I mean, especially being the fact that you have to have two wardrobes, your off-season wardrobe and your prep wardrobe, and they don't make clothes for women that have that big of bodies and stuff like that. So
Yes.
what has that experience been like for you?
I have been so blessed that I work in the fitness industry, so I get to wear my workout clothes to work. It's wonderful. I buy everything in Under Armour, and I buy several sizes. So I got my prep sizes, and then I got my my off season sizes, and it's wonderful. I mean, perfect. But aside from that, I did. I mean, jeans. What are those? What are those? I've become a huge fan of the dress. I mean, when I can find a dress that I can either belt or have a tailor take the waist in, and that's all they got to do to it, then it works. Yeah, the simpler. I'm all about keeping it simple. The simpler, the better. I'm not even going to try to force these legs into jeans. It's just not happening.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's one of the prices that you have to pay. But the last few questions that we got here, I mean, if someone were to walk up to you and say, Andrea, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you would like to see changed?
That's a great question. I would say maybe the one thing I would like to see change that could kind of even the playing field. And they did this years ago. I wasn't in tune with bodybuilding back then, but similar to the men, like they have the class of the 212 and then the open. I think that some of the shorter girls, they just don't they don't have that extra oomph that they could have when you look at some of us who are a little bit taller. So not that they can't still put on mass, they definitely can, but I would like to see them maybe do the height separation to give those girls a good chance at maybe placing a little bit higher. But other than that, that would be because I mean that's not their fault.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean height is height,
Yeah.
and you're at 6'3", you can understand that the girl who's on stage next to, the girl who's 5'7", if she's, 5'3", it
Yeah.
speaks for itself.
Yeah.
But again, I know that could be very challenging because, with the pros, there's only so many of us. And I mean, the judges really, it's more work for them. I get it. So, but wishful thinking.
Yeah. Well, and then you always have those outliers like Colette Goodman, who was like 5 foot tall and weighed like 200 pounds, and you're just like, okay, like how is that a thing? But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's one thing that we've heard a lot too that they'd want to see change. But I would get absolutely stoned alive if I didn't ask this, because the number one thing. So I asked before New Year's Eve, I had a poll and I said, what's one body part that everyone wants to see, improve the most next year? I had arms, back, legs, abs, and there's a third one, but I can't even remember because it didn't even get that many votes. But arms won by like 20%. So I have to, how do you train your arms? Because I mean, if I wasn't gonna ask you that, I feel like I would be like, I'm actually gonna probably like have a note card right here right now and write down every word that she says after this. But what do you train for arms to get them to look the way that they look?
You are going to make me admit to something that I don't want to admit to,
If you
but
tell
I
me that you
have to
don't
do
train
it.
arms, I'm gonna throw a fit, okay?
I do not train arms. I do not. My coach makes me. He makes me train arms. So, I mean, I do very light weights with my ladies in class. I mean, light weights obviously, right? It's relative for me. 10 pounds, 8 pounds, but aside from that, maybe 12s. I don't work arms. I make my back lifts and my chest and shoulder lifts heavy enough where that becomes, in essence, my arm workout. So I can tell you when I first started getting into the workouts with my training partner, ooh, this was back in 2011, we would do a lot of preacher curls. So those are like, so if you want to know how I got here, okay, so that was, yeah. And then we just slowly went transition out of working arms. So preacher curls with the barbell. We would do preacher curls with the dumbbell, okay, and then we would always make sure that we did full extension and then flex, um, and then create that same exercise with cables. So we would always start with the external load of a dumbbell and or a barbell, and we would work them twice a week. So twice a week was the recipe for me. And then we would also follow right up with that with cable exercises, and thos are the go-to's. So I try to stay away from machines. You definitely, if you're looking to build the mass, you need to come on, ladies, stop hanging out over here at the machines. Let's come over here to the free weight area. It's not going to be comfortable. It's okay. The end result of what you achieve is worth it. So just get on over there. Uh-huh.
All right, so I'm now. This is a world that doesn't even make any sense to me now. I mean, she said that she doesn't train arms anymore, so that's just. I mean,
Well, I do now. My coach, like, he
yeah,
makes me. But he knows that as soon as we go back in the off season, I'm probably not gonna train. He makes me do dips. He makes me do tricep rope extensions. And then the same rule applies with the curls. He gives me the freedom to do concentration curls. Concentration curls. I also used to do those. So my top three movements: tricep rope extensions, dips, and then concentration curls. I'll still do hammer curls and bicep curls, but preacher curls were definitely a way that I found grew them faster. Now the concentration curl is definitely good maintenance. So.
I have never been more jealous of another human being in my entire life, and
Oh.
finally found one. But I do have to ask, because time under tension is a thing that I've been doing for a while now, and it's really really helped me. Do you like to do a lot of time under tension in your training?
I absolutely love it. It is definitely a huge attribute to what I've been able to achieve. Because that time under tension, I mean, and there's so many different ways to kind of implement it. Maybe it's more reps, maybe it's drop sets. There's a way to keep those muscles under tension to make them grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that's really really helped me. And if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding career? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk a year from today?
A year from today, I would absolutely love to be Miss Olympia, especially with there's such a heightened um, sense of camaraderie amongst us now because we finally get a chance to get back to the Olympia. And it's like, who's going to take it? Who's going to take it? Who's going to really shine and be that next poster girl for this is the ideal female bodybuilder? She is the best in the world. I absolutely would love to have that title and share it with my beloved Linda Murray. And the rest of the champions too. Alina Popa, I mean, some of my absolute favorites. Iris, I mean, she's 10-time GOAT, so who can take that from her? But having the experience of being at the last Olympia, where it was announced and they did a tribute to the previous Miss Olympias that were able to make it, and I was able to hand them their trophies. It was amazing to just be amongst them. So that would absolutely be priority number one.
Yep.
Get that Miss O title.
Well, and lastly, I mean, one thing that I find so fascinating, especially about female bodybuilding, is that it's one of those sports where everyone seems to care about each other. I mean, there's such a tight knit community between the competitors where you don't see that in almost any sport. What is that like for you? Just knowing that, I mean, you have people on your corner, especially even when you're competing, that really do care about you and have your back. How much does that help you in your journey?
Oh, it means the world. It means the world. And I mean, these girls, I still keep in touch with women's physique amateurs and pros, uh, women's bodybuilding pros. I mean, they welcome to be with open arms. They're like, okay, we could look at you and tell that you needed to be with us. And these relationships, they will far outlast the competition career. So that's comforting because when you look at these experiences and the amount of encouragement that it does take to, like you said, it's more mental than anything. So that becomes priceless when you're in, 5 weeks into a prep and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, this is tough. To take that call or to get that text or to send out a text and say, hey, I how's it going? I need an ear. Priceless, priceless. So this has been probably even outside of my college friends, and I mean I've got great college friends. These relationships have definitely been um, more near and dear to my heart.
Yep. No, and I totally understand that. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
All the women bodybuilders, all of my female bodybuilders. Oh, this is our time. Let's go. Let's go. We are definitely back on the map. We got to make sure that we bring our A game, and I believe that our sponsor is definitely paving the way for us to never ever be written off again.
Yeah. And I think that's so great that it's back for the Olympia, and we wish you nothing but the best. But Andrea, I couldn't think of a better way that for you to embarrass us again before we cut this off. You want to give us another front double, and then I'm not even gonna look because it's just absolutely that's just not even fair, everyone. I mean, I just need
Ah,
to. She doesn't even
got to
train
take it up
him.
with the man upstairs.
Yeah, I mean, she's just. And again, you guys, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey, and we wish you nothing but the best. And I honestly think you're gonna do great.
And thank you so much for having me. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for supporting the sport.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and I figured too when I was thinking of like when I just started out with health and fitness guests, I didn't have bodybuilders on per se as much. Like I would just have like people who had weight loss journeys, and then all of a sudden I just discovered really the female bodybuilding community, and I was like, hey, they don't have that much of a voice, so anything that I can do to help, and yeah, I definitely appreciate it. So everyone, go and check her out on Instagram and all of her other stuff. I'll leave a link to all that stuff down below. Granted, you will want to get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies once you take one look at some of her photos. And, again, thank you again for coming on. I really appreciate it. And everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.